Studio Wildcard has had many titles thrown at it. Incompetent because they continue to have the same issues from 2 years ago when it first entered early access. New base code issues cropping up. The feeling that the game designers are only half-assing major overhauls or major implementations. Greedy because of their decisions to prioritize making money, saving money where possible, and making sure that they can nickel and dime the players out of every cent they can. In terms of incompetence, we've seen the same issues cropping up. Undermeshing is still a thing. Tribes continue to raid other tribes, other servers from under the mesh, essentially making defenses that you may have obsolete. After all, turrets can't hit somebody that's attacking you from, well, outside of the groundwork. Dinosaurs continue to be lackluster in many respects. A lot of creatures never got the TLC pass that Studio Wildcard promised would happen before retail release finally occurred. Hitboxes continue to be absolutely atrocious. It's possible to jump with a saber, land literally inside the hitbox of a Rex, and, well, congratulations. Your prize saber is now being killed as it is no longer able to defend itself because it's considered jumping. There's no way to save yourself in a position like that. Hell, the tree issue continues to be a thing where you get caught on a tree. You can't do anything about it. You have to cut down the tree and then immediately die. There have been some good decisions made, but they are all literally overshadowed by a few very simple, incompetent design decisions. And in classic Wildcard fashion, each one of those design decisions, each one of them has a negative ramification, most notably that the players show that Studio Wildcard didn't implement something properly. And the forums become overrun, inundated with threads about how, well, Studio Wildcard just doesn't care. Developers continue to promise small things and refuse to, or fail rather, to deliver on them. Such as Jeremy's promise a couple of months ago that the game would be broken up so that the tools modders need to create mods would be separated from the main game, and thus if you weren't a modder, the game would not take up 120 gigabytes of space on your hard drive, or in my case, solid state drive. And of course, this hasn't changed. Jeremy continues to make promises like he's Robert Space Industries. He continues to fail to provide them. And then there's always some new, oh, look at this, that's coming out the next week. This is why people have absolutely no hope that this game will be able to be saved. And it wasn't too long ago that they decided to run a piece with PC Gamer in which the CEO of Studio Wildcard said the following. Quote, "We will absolutely 100% use early access for our next project," Kennedy said. "I enjoy it because it allows us to onboard our hardest of hardcore fans and stay in tune with them and to give them a voice inside a game that's being developed." A game being developed. Maybe like the sequel they've been talking about for a game whose first DLC was lackluster, more polished than the base game at the time, but it was released during early access. A second DLC that has been pushed back 2 months because of development issues, scheduled to release in 8 days. A third already being talked about in, quote, in production, unquote. And we wonder where all the resources for the base game, unfucking what has happened pretty much, have gone. You want to know where it's gone? Right there. It's gone to games that aren't even out yet. It's gone to games that do not show the promise of being competent. Scorched Earth may have been more polished, but it was still incompetent. Nobody plays on Scorched Earth servers except to get a Wyvern. And that's about it. Nobody uses the Mantis. Nobody uses Morellatops. Why? The Wyvern's the only creature that was put into the game that anybody cares about. Aberration will probably be the exact same thing. 1 or 2 creatures that are used for raiding, but other than that, nobody cares. And why should they? Arc continues to be fundamentally flawed. When I and others like myself are pointing out the foundation was broken during early access, the response from Studio Wildcard and their White Knights was, we'll fix it during beta. This is the alpha phase where we're supposed to continue to add content. Beta is when you fix stuff. And that was a valid point. I still said that they should have looked at optimization early on, because the more you add to the foundation, the harder it becomes to fix. That's just a fact. But the real problem was we didn't have a beta phase. Between the decision to announce the game's full release and the actual full release, there was never a beta phase. Small optimizations and tweaks may have been made, but it doesn't fix the memory leaks that happened, the True Sky crashes, the crashes people have underwater, the fog issue underwater, the reflection of everything when you're looking at the water, even when you're not near it. Now, that might be an engine issue, and I fully admit that. That's what I've heard. And I'm not a game developer. I'm not a game programmer. Not something I really care about. But the underlying fact is that every time they have made a decision, such as the heavy turret implementation, they've gone radio silent. They've gone dark, not responding to criticism unless it's absolutely required. Case in point, the 100 turret limit. They had to respond to that because people were already saying they were going to, well, stop playing. Studio Wildcard can't have that. This is their first game. This is their debut game. If the game numbers, if the players drop significantly over days, well, their game is a flop. And they know that. Official servers continue to be destitute. They continue to be an absolute shit show when raiding happens. And yet, unofficial servers, pretty much every one of them runs like a charm. Maybe it's just the way that they're set up. Who knows? I play on clustered servers, and we don't really have too much of an issue. Our center server lags on occasion, but I'm fairly confident that that has to do with the INI and spawning changes that the admins set up. Other than that, we don't really see too much of an issue. Greed is probably the biggest thing, though. Their decision not to host servers in their own, well, in an area controlled by them, not hiring people to maintain those servers when that would be the most logical decision. You're playing on a PvP server. You want this to be an MMO. You want to run official servers. Logic dictates that you run the servers in an area that you control so that when servers go down, you can flip a switch and quickly bring them back up. Not make people wait for days not playing their game, having tames killed, or rather having breeds killed because they can't get in to feed them. Because the server is still up, nobody can connect to it. The decision to link the Season Pass to Scorched Earth, an expansion that came out a year ago, but the Season Pass can't be refunded now, despite the very clear backlash that they have continuously messed up. See, this is what the greed portion comes into. Customer service, the queues being abysmally long. And when you do get a response, it's a form letter saying, sucks to be you. How is that customer service? It's not. And Studio Wildcard knows that. They just don't care. And why should they? They have our money. Why should they care? The truth of the matter is that Studio Wildcard is in it for the money at the end of the day. They're a business, and I understand that. A business needs to make money. But as the debut game, you need to also take care of the players. Because if your reputation is built upon what the debut game is, Arc is a failure. Sure, commercially it might be a success, but commercially is only good when you have investors. You have to make sure they get returns on their investments. The players at the end of the day will remember what a shit show your game was, and they're not likely to buy it in the future. Anything with your company being on that box, they're not likely to really, they're not likely to purchase, give you their money, their patronage. In order to improve, Studio Wildcard needs to do a few things. First off, there needs to be better communication, more transparency with the player base, especially when the player base is being hostile. None of this Wildcard the right hand bullshit where he makes a post pretty much insulting the players for daring to say this is absolute BS. Why haven't you talked about it in days? Because frustration does build up and eventually the players do say, what the hell? After that, devote more resources to fixing the base game. If the base game is fundamentally flawed, the expansions will not fix this. I guess you could put the fixes in the expansion and force people to buy them, but at that point you show your hand and show that you don't care about the players, you only care about the bottom line. Hire more customer service. The problem definitely is that there are too few customer service representatives, too few GMs to take care of issues. It's very obvious when somebody is putting in clear evidence of hacking or undermeshing when it takes you days to respond to it. And finally, make your official servers yours. None of this Nitredo stuff. No outsourcing. Hire people to maintain the servers. Buy the hardware. Create your own little server farm. Then the players don't have to wait days for their server to come back up. Small things. Yes, you spend a little money now, but you make more money in the future because people see that you actually care. Maybe they'll listen, maybe they won't. And history says they're not going to listen because they don't listen to the players. To them, we're their quality control team. They have none. They have literally said they don't have a quality control team. They continue to use players in this age of released. The players continue to be their unpaid quality control. In fact, we paid them to take up that position. That's unacceptable. And every person should be upset with this, whether you're a defender of Wildcard or not. You should be upset with the decision to use you as their unpaid labor. Incompetence and greed. Two adjectives that go with Studio Wildcard. And as time goes on, they can't hide that fact.